Hello and welcome once again to the Thrifty Collector. I'm going to do about 2 or 3 little tidbits today. The first one I'm going to do is I went ahead and I got a great return from my buddy Nick at Captain's Corner, who does a lot of signings with a lot of great wrestlers. If you've never checked them out, check them out. He's a great guy, works hard, gets cards the way that you want them signed in the color Sharpie. Never have had a problem. And then I'm going to go over maybe a couple of helpful tips, which I'll do right now. When you go ahead and send your cards into Captain's Corner, anybody, make sure what's kind of important is that you have a Post-it note on the back. Have your full name. Have what color instrument that you want. Like this one for Steve Kern, I went ahead and put blue Sharpie, had my name. Also, what's very important, take a picture, because a lot of these promoters get hundreds, maybe even thousands of cards through the mail, and sometimes things kind of get shuffled. So if you take a picture of what you're sending out, you'll always know what you send it out. And then that way, if they have trouble finding out maybe what cards are yours, you can send them the picture and they say, oh, okay, yeah, I do have that one, sorry. So always take a picture of what you send before you send it out. That is, before you put it in the envelope, and go ahead and put the Post-it note on the back with, like I said, with your first and last name, maybe even a phone number, and that'll really help anybody, any promoter that is doing those particular cards. So I went ahead and this is about 4 or 5 months worth of signings that Nick at Captain's Corner did for me. So I'm going to go over these. Some of these cards, I'm amazed that I was able to get them signed, and I'll kind of go into them a little bit. But the first one is Steve Kern. Steve Kern was around for quite a while. He was also the other Doink in WrestleMania when they had the mirror Doink, if you've ever seen that. He was also Skinner in the WWF. Excuse me, he was really a great superstar. I believe he's actually still working for the WWF. I'm not 100% sure with that, or WWE, whatever they call it now. And so this is a great card to have. Steve Kern, to me, is quite a legend. I did love the Mirror Doink in the WrestleMania event. But like on this one, I put blue Sharpie, and Steve signed it perfectly in blue Sharpie. The next card is Dangerous Dan Spivey. Now, as far as I could tell, this is really his first card. There was a Classics WrestleMania set back in about 1990, and there was a Battle Royale, and he was blonde back then. He was Dangerous Dan Spivey, and he's actually in the middle of the card. It's a faraway shot, but he's so tall you can actually see him right there in the middle. Kind of going more for card that has the individual himself. There's another famous wrestler, Diamond Dallas Page, was actually in that set. He was in the pink Cadillac that drove Greg the Hammer Valentine and Honky Tonk Man. So you could kind of say, well, that was Diamond Dallas Page's first card. And then he was also on another card that was kind of like a wacky wrestling thing. And it was him and Scott Hall when he was the Diamond Stud. And it read something like, there's the guy, here goes the guy that sold us these outfits. But everybody probably really does consider the 95, unless there's some offshoot one that I don't know about. And that's the thing about wrestling cards. You think that you know which one's their first card, and then all of a sudden something else comes up. But this was Dangerous Dan Spivey when he was Waylon Mercy. A lot of wrestlers like to write the name of the character that they portrayed on the card. I specifically asked for Dan Spivey on this one. Dan Spivey was in the WCW before this, and he was in the Skyscrapers with Sid Justice and also Mark Calloway, and who was eventually became the Undertaker. If you've never seen the one where him and Vicious were wrestling two jobbers, and the jobber would no sell any of their moves, they kind of beat the guy pretty bad outside the ring. I don't know what was going through that guy's head to try to pull a fast one on those two guys, but Dangerous Dan Spivey was always a big fan. When he got to WE, or by then WWF, he was kind of very kind of older, had a lot of injuries, didn't do much, but it was a great character, kind of stolen off of Cape Fear with Robert De Niro. The next card is Ronnie Garvin. As far as I know, this is his first card. This is out of the 1998 Wonderama set. I actually forgot to put blue Sharpie on there, so he signed it in black, which is fine. Didn't know much about Ronnie Garvin. I kind of remembered him in his WWF run. Didn't really know much about him. And then that's kind of the neat thing when you start learning the different territories, being from New England. All we had was WWF, and the kind of attitude was everybody else was kind of the minor leagues until they got to the WWF when we were kids. But little did we know that all the other territories were just as big. And I've heard people, Bischoff said that I think it was Nick Bockwinkel was the heavyweight champion, and he didn't know that there were any other heavyweight champions when he was a little kid. So it just kind of depends on the region. So if you're a little bit younger, the territories was an amazing thing. And that's his 1998 Wonderama. That Waylon Mercy card, that came out of the WWF magazine. The next one is Masked Superstar. I did probably put blue Sharpie on there. He just put super and then a star. But he was also Demolition. I believe he was Axe or Smash, one of the two, in Demolition after this gimmick. So, but he was very popular, I know, here in this area with Continental Championship Wrestling. So that's the Masked Superstar. And that is at the 1985 Wrestling All-Stars magazine cards, if you can even try to pick one of those up now. I had picked up two magazines. I kept one intact, and one I actually did cut out of the cards out of, which I should have left them intact, but I wanted to send at least something out to get signed. But great magazine, great cards of guys if you look at it, some of them you would not even know who they are unless you kind of got used to knowing who was in the territories. Next one is the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. So needless to say, everybody knows about him. Money Incorporated in WWF. He was the third guy in the NWO, which never really saw the fit there with him. But yes, Ted DiBiase, legend with his $1 Million Dream, and also the $1 Million belt that Steve Austin had when he first got to the WWF. Next card is out of the 1988 Wonderama set also. It's Ricky Santana. Didn't know much about Ricky Santana. I do know that he kind of stuck around as kind of like an agent in WCW for a while, but it was just a good opportunity to get some of these 1988 Wonderama cards. If you've never gotten the set, it's quite an expensive set now. You're going to pay a lot of money for it. It's Sting's first card, and he was on about 5 cards. It was also Luger's first card. He was on about 5 cards. But it also had some very obscure wrestlers in it. So it was one of the things that was really neat to have. If you kind of look at the crowd, one of the things is, one, the lights are down on the crowd, and two, there's really not many signs. So it was quite different than when I really, really got into wrestling in the 90s, when, if you saw the Raws when they first came on in Nitros, that there were so many signs you could barely see the crowd. But that's Ricky Santana. Another one, I actually had 2 of these Ted DiBiase's. Now I think I actually have 4 of these Ted DiBiase cards that are signed. One I've actually got slabbed. I think it's PSA or SGC. I don't know. And eventually, since SGC doesn't do the slabbing anymore, I've kind of switched over to Beckett. And with some of the better cards, I definitely do that. And then I actually had another Ricky Santana. He looks like he signed in 2 totally different spots. on that. If you compare the two, kind of the same, I guess. Next one, another one out of the 1985 Wrestling All-Stars magazine is the Tonga Kid. So if you've ever seen the movie Highlander, and most of us all have seen the movie Highlander, in the beginning when it starts off in the Madison Square Garden, it was the Freebirds, Michael P.S. Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts against Greg Gagne, the Tonga Kid, and I can't remember right now off the top of my head who was that. So it's kind of interesting. One of my favorite movies of all time. He was actually in. And then I actually have, this is more of the way that the card was supposed to be cut. That was part of the problems with this set, is that the cards weren't evenly sized as you kind of cut them out. So a lot of people kind of trimmed the cards a little bit too much, but this was the way that the card was actually supposed to come out. I've got another Mass Superstar. They do a reunion in Continental about once a year, of course, because of all this COVID craziness. They didn't have one last year, but they're supposed to have one this coming March now. And he's one of the guys been really hoping that would show up to it, just because I always liked Demolition. I mean, Demolition was the WWF version of the Road Warriors, so they were great. Next one is a 1985 O-Pee-Chee WWF. If you've tried getting it, maybe had the 1985 Topps cards, the O-Pee-Chee had a lot more wrestlers in it. I think it was almost twice the size as the American version. O-Pee-Chee is the Canadian version. So it's the back of the cards are both in English and French. So see if I can get a good close-up on that. Might not be the best, but the top is in English, and the bottom paragraph is in French. Since they have Quebec there, they put half of everything in French. But a lot better set, the O-Pee-Chee. I don't know why the Canadians got such a better set than we did, but they definitely did. Next one is the 1982, the NWA World Champion for almost, I believe, 3 weeks, maybe even less than that. My buddy Mike would know exactly how many days it was. Tommy Wildfire Rich, I actually met him at the Dothan reunion. He is an absolute trip. You can tell he must have been one heck of a partier, because we kept, I don't know if I've told this story, but Lawler was sitting next to him, and you could tell Lawler more reserved, teetotaler, non-drinker, non-partier, and Tommy Rich is the exact opposite. And Tommy had obviously gotten a Subway sub, and as we were paying Tommy cash, he kept slapping Jerry on the shoulder saying, "Can you believe they're paying me cash? Jerry, Jerry." And he just did that on, and he would take the cash and put it underneath his Subway napkins. That was, yeah. You could tell this was probably about 3 years ago, when signings wasn't as much as they are now. These guys really weren't as versed as it was. So Tommy wasn't ready. He didn't have anything to put the cash in. So I'm sure he claimed it, though, for tax purposes. But real cool. He puts Tommy Wildfire Rich. He was a blast, very nice guy. Just a super fun guy to talk to and hang out with. And next I have the Wrestling All-Stars, Jerry Stubbs, also known as Mr. Olympia. When he was Mr. Olympia, he was a good guy, a babyface. When he was Jerry Stubbs, he was a bad guy or a heel. He teamed a lot in this area with a guy named Marty Lundy, who was now known as Arn Anderson. So, but I've met Jerry Stubbs probably about 5 times, I would say. Very nice. It was actually so hot one year, they put us in the middle of Alabama, middle of the summer, in this big like peanut warehouse. And it must have been about 110 degrees in there. And Stubbs, like everybody else, he sweated all over one of my cards, and he was actually very apologetic and just said, just mail me another card. Probably could have just mailed this to him, but figured I'd get this done. Jerry did have a heart attack about 3 months ago, but seems like he's doing better. He's still around, which is great to hear. Just a complete gentleman. So, and then I haven't had a lot of these cards signed, but this is the 1986 Monty set. If you've ever seen this was like, I think these cards were out of Turkey or something like that, because I remember seeing a picture of the box and it looked like it was in Arabic. They got a lot of the names wrong. They got a lot of the pictures wrong. There's a picture, there's a card of Jim Cornette, and it's actually a picture of Bobby Eaton. And instead of Jim, they put J-I-N. And only thing of Cornette's was in the tennis racket itself. That was it. There was actually no picture of Cornette. It was his tennis racket in the picture. So, but this is the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez. I've seen Manny talk on YouTube. I don't think I've ever even seen a match of his, but just the stories he tells are pretty much amazing out there. One thing about these cards, they're blank back. I believe they came in 3 panels, and you actually had to cut the cards yourself, I believe, on that. So, or maybe they were perforated and you just broke them off that way. I really don't know. I've never had an unowned box or a pack. So, but that is the end. That's the 1986 Manny Fernandez, and hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be sending some more off to Nick, maybe a few other people here soon. Going to do some mail outs, switch my job with the school system. So it's been rather crazy. So I've been trying to catch up with everything, and everybody have a wonderful day. Enjoy the summer. And as always, stay thrifty.